I just want to document that this is the best pepper year I've ever had in my life. They're huge! And check this out. Look at all of those hot peppers. And then I'm flooded with jalapenos inside, all underneath. There's just tons, and I'm so excited. And then I got some more super hots here. It's amazing. It took me quite a few years to figure out how to grow peppers successfully, especially in our cold climates with our short seasons. I never managed to get peppers that grew to maturity where they were able to ripen to red, orange, purple, whatever the color was, until I implemented these few tips that I'm going to show you in this video. And ever since I started doing this, I now have bounties of peppers, so many that I can't even eat them in the season and I have to freeze them, and I end up with a freezer full of peppers. And I also have to dehydrate them because I'm quite literally drowning in peppers. And I never thought that this was possible if you grew in Canada or anywhere with a short season. And so I'm going to share these with you today so that way you can also have a bumper crop of peppers this year. If you're new here, my name is Bree from Urban Gardening Canada, and I garden in Ottawa Zone 5. And I am so excited to be able to share this with you because I just love the fact that we actually can grow peppers, and you don't even need a greenhouse. You can just grow them outside in your garden. And so let's get into everything you need to know to be able to have massive peppers this season. Okay, so the first thing is just how to start seeds and when to start seeds. And this was actually one of the biggest things that I changed that gave me a way better pepper harvest. And that was starting my seeds way earlier than I ever used to. When I first started gardening, I would start my seeds in March, but really peppers do best when they get started in February. And so if you can actually even start them in January if you wanted to. Some people who grow hot peppers or super hots will start them in January, but when I start mine in February, super hots or milds, they do just as well. And so the first tip is to start them early. And so if you're watching this now, it is just the beginning of March, so not a big deal. So you can still get them in the ground. You're going to be a couple weeks behind, but that's really not a big deal. This is better for you for next year. Start your seeds in February. And if you're watching this later in March or in further months, write this down for next year in your journal. And so you're going to want to start them anywhere from the beginning to the middle of February. And starting them on a heat mat with a dome is essential to make sure that your seeds germinate at a decent rate and can get started early. You can start your seeds without a heat mat or without a dome, but it's going to take longer, and the goal is to get them moving as fast as possible. So if you don't have a heat mat or a dome, start them even earlier, the end of January, or make sure that you are starting them at the beginning of February, and keep them evenly moist, don't let them dry out, and then as soon as they sprout, you can pull that dome off and turn the heat mat off. So if you're not quite sure of all the steps on how to grow peppers from seed to harvest, such as planting depth, how long it takes to germinate, how to upgrade your plants, I actually have an article on my website that will teach you how to grow peppers from seed. I also have a comprehensive guide on there on how to grow literally anything from seed, all of your basic rules in order to do that, along with an article on all of the equipment you need to grow from seed. I'm going to leave a link below for you to check out those articles, so that way if you need a little bit more help on how to grow your peppers, you'll be able to read it in that article. But this video is more on just tips that you can use or secrets in order to get a massive bounty of peppers. My second tip on how to get your peppers to grow amazing, and that is to plant them outside under cover. You do not want to plant them outside until the temperatures are above 10 degrees Celsius consistently. You don't have to worry about your last frost date. The most important thing is what your 7 to 10 day forecast looks like. So they do not like temperatures that drop below 10 degrees Celsius, and that means even at nighttime. So if your 7 to 10 day forecast is showing days and nights hovering around that 10 degrees Celsius mark, 8 degrees is fine too, then you are good to plant them outside. So even if the temperatures are 10 degrees, even if the daytime temperatures are 15, 18, or 20 degrees Celsius, grow them under cover. And so for me, that looks like hoop houses where I use flexible PEX pipe as my hoops with a 6 mil poly that I clip on the outside to build miniature greenhouses or hoop houses. However, if you have a cold frame, this works for you as well. And so I always kept my peppers covered at nighttime every single night, even if it was 8 to 10 degrees. And during the daytime, I would only open it if it was above 20 degrees Celsius, just to make sure that you didn't cook them, because of course they're not used to the super hot temperatures when you first plant them out. But I kept mine under cover for the first 1 to 2 weeks of them being planted outside. Make sure you keep them well watered. And this helped my plants establish roots and also grow really quickly in those 2 weeks where the temperatures are still quite cool because it is springtime, but you got that extra heat that they would normally experience in summer. And so it acts like an extension to the season, which it really helps these plants out, giving them that heat that they're looking for. If you have any flower buds on them, make sure that you pull those flower buds off, pinch those off, because you don't want any flowers when you're first planting them out in the springtime. Okay, so my tip number 3, I did mention pinching off flowers, but never top your peppers. Some people might overwinter their peppers here in Canada. I've never done it, and I'm not really interested in doing that because when I grow them annually, they work really well. But don't top your peppers. This was a trend that came across social media maybe 5-6 years ago, where people top the top of their pepper, where they cut the stem off so that way it creates branching. But I've never topped my peppers before, and I've never had an issue where my pepper plants didn't branch on their own naturally. The issue with topping your peppers is it sets them back a few weeks while they're trying to regrow new stems. And because our seasons are so short, you're setting your peppers back a few weeks that we just don't have. And so you really want to avoid topping them off and just allow them to branch on their own naturally, so you really don't have to worry about this at all. So tip number 4 is when you're planting your peppers, make sure that you're staking them right away, because your pepper plants can easily grow 4 feet tall and equally as wide. And so when they're loaded with the fruit that you are going to get this season, you really want to make sure that you have them staked at the stem. And the benefit of staking them when you first plant them is that you're not going to damage the roots. And plus, if you stake them right at the beginning, it's easy to tie them up as they're growing. But if you wait until later in the season when they've already started branching or maybe have tipped over, you're going to have a really hard time being able to stake them and get them into a proper form. And so it's really important to do it from the beginning. And you can prune the bottom of your peppers, which is what I do, and I highly recommend it. So I keep the first foot to 2 feet of my pepper fully pruned, so all there is a stem and no branches. And this helps prevent any disease that can come to your peppers from the soil splashing on them, but it also means that all of the energy is moving up the stem into the branches, so that way you get more fruit. And finally, my last tip is to make sure that you plant them in a place that is really sunny. Peppers love sun, and so the more sun they get, the better they are. My garden gets sun right early in the morning around 9 to 10 a.m. and stays in the sunshine until 6 o'clock at night. And it only gets about shade for about 1 hour around noon to 1 o'clock, but otherwise they get full sun, and this is what they absolutely love to grow in, and it's going to help them grow big and healthy. And I even overcrowded my peppers this year. I put 1 per square foot, which is the typical square foot gardening method, and these plants grew 4 feet tall. They were huge and wide, and they did amazing. They gave me an incredible amount of peppers, and so even the spacing isn't that big of a deal as much as getting a lot of sunlight. And just a really quick tip when it comes to peppers: if you are growing hot peppers, the less you water them, the spicier the pepper will get. And if you are growing mild peppers, the less you water them, the more spicy they get. And so if you are growing mild and hot peppers, I recommend either putting them on opposite sides of your garden bed or in 2 different gardens, because they get different levels of watering. So if you want your peppers to be really spicy this year, just give them a little bit less water than you do with your mild peppers, because it helps bring out that spice. If you have really wet weather, then it will dull the spice of your peppers a little bit, but it just depends on what type types you're growing. We grew super hots last year and we're not really big on spicy peppers, but we wanted to give it a go after watching a documentary on it. And even though we got a ton of rain here in Ottawa, they were still really spicy. But if you're growing a jalapeno and you're watering it a ton, it is going to remove some of that spice on one of the more milder spicy peppers. And if you forget to water your bell peppers, they are going to have a little bit of like that black pepper, peppery spice to them. And so the more you water your mild peppers, the better they are going to be when it comes to having that nice, sweet, mild flavor. So really make sure that you understand the watering needs of both your hot and your mild peppers and water them accordingly. And that is everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and check out this video here. Bye.